Today's exciting story starts with a handsome and successful businessman named Gianni, who is quite decent in appearance but is a very complex person from the inside. Gianni's habits are like a 21-year-old boy. He dates a new girl every day, and to impress young girls easily, he keeps changing his appearance again and again. Gianni's friend Fabio reveals this by saying that he has adopted 3 different identities in a single week so that he can date 3 different girls. To pull Fabio's leg, Gianni says, "Who knows, your wife may also want to date me." After this, Gianni sits for lunch with his friend Dr. Dante. Here Dante says, "Gianni, you are turning 50, now you should give up debauchery and settle down with someone." Meanwhile, Gianni's phone rings, and as soon as he talks, he becomes nervous. Dante asked, "What happened?" Gianni said that his mother is no more in this world. After this, Gianni immediately goes to the graveyard. But here the gentleman joins someone else's funeral instead of his mother, and after coming to know, he says sorry and moves ahead. Finally, when he reached his mother's funeral, his brother started asking him the reason for coming late, to which Gianni said, "I was stuck somewhere." After this, Gianni's brother gives him the keys to his mother's house, and as soon as the funeral is over, Gianni goes to his mother's house. Here, he sees some of his old family photos. Gianni became emotional after seeing the photos and sat on his mother's wheelchair. After this, Gianni took his mother's radio and started listening to songs on it. Meanwhile, a very beautiful girl, Alicia, knocks at the door. The moment Gianni sees him, he starts drooling. As soon as she comes home, Alicia says, "I am your new neighbor, and I work in an NGO to help some disabled people. If you have any need, please let me know." Gianni jumped at the chance and assumed a new identity of being handicapped. The next day, we see Gianni in his dangerous bossy form, who is angry at the employees, saying that the aim of our sneaker brand is not just to sell shoes, but to become a part of people's lifestyle. Meanwhile, Julia, a newly employed girl, says, "We should hire Paralympic athletes to increase our clients so that their fans get attracted towards us." After listening to Julia, Gianni says, "Keep your nonsense to yourself. We make our products for Instagram influencers, not for handicapped people who wear the same shoes all their lives." After this, Gianni fired Julia from her job. After the meeting is over, Gianni's assistant Luciana gives him some old clothes, and Gianni wears them and leaves for his mother's house. When Alicia arrives, he sits her down for coffee. Here, Alicia says, "I like rich and funky people. I help the handicapped and the poor only because of religious sentiments." Now when this helpless trick failed, Gianni called Alicia back and said, "I am the owner of High Speed. I have hundreds of stores all over Europe, and I also have many villas." Alicia was shocked after hearing all this, and her expression started changing in front of Gianni. Alicia immediately invited him to her house and left. On Sunday, Gianni goes towards her house and stops the car some distance away, and goes inside with great difficulty on a wheelchair. Alicia welcomes him and takes him inside the house, where Gianni talks to her sick grandmother and other family members. Meanwhile, Alicia's sister Chiara arrives home. Gianni's senses started fluttering once again, but the very next moment when Chiara came down, the poor man's wishes were shattered. In fact, Chiara was also handicapped, and Alicia had actually invited Gianni to talk to her. After eating, both are left alone. Here, Chiara tells that she likes to play sports and is also a professional violin player. On the other hand, Gianni was not interested in anything of hers. After leaving, Gianni is sitting with his friends. Here, Gianni tells them about Chiara and says, "Of course she is beautiful, but I am not interested in handicapped girls." Meanwhile, his friend Fabio challenges him. "If you have the courage, then show it by sleeping with Chiara." Now, Gianni also agreed to the challenge. Here, Alicia comes to Gianni's mother's house to return his raincoat. Gianni's brother Razzeri opened the door and invited Alicia inside. Here, Alicia says that, "Your brother is a very good person. I have also heard about his many charity works." Apart from this, she also regrets that poor Gianni is handicapped. The elder brother was surprised to hear these things. He had understood what the younger brother was planning here. But Razzeri remained silent here and went straight to explain to Gianni. But Gianni didn't want to understand anything from him. Instead of giving any kind of answer, he said, "I am not bald like you. Girls still look at me." Gianni made fun of Razzeri and turned back. Next morning, Gianni asks Chiara on voicemail for a date on Saturday. But when he reached the office, he was surprised that Chiara surprised him today instead of Saturday. The poor guy didn't have a wheelchair in the office, so he immediately sat on the table and started talking to Chiara. Chiara says, "I will not be able to come on a date on Saturday, but if you want, you can come to watch my tennis match in the evening." Gianni says yes, and at the same time, to impress Chiara, he says, "Our company provides special support to disabled athletes." In the evening, Gianni watches Chiara's match and impressed to see her playing so well. After the match is over, Chiara, along with her disabled friends, comes to meet Gianni, and everyone sits down to eat. Everything that Gianni had thought was happening here was the opposite. All of Chiara's friends were only asking Gianni the reason for his handicap. The poor guy was so troubled by these questions that at night he actually dreamed of becoming handicapped. The next day, Gianni goes to Turin City, where Chiara has an orchestra show. Gianni bought an electric wheelchair and reached the show. When he met Chiara after the show, Chiara was surprised. When she asked Gianni the reason for coming so far, he lied and said, "I had come here for some work and reached here while roaming around. And look at the coincidence, I met you here." After this, both of them go to have dinner in a luxurious restaurant, where Gianni tries to tell his whole truth but can't muster the courage. Finally, he changed his mind and said, "I lied that I had come for office work. I came here just to see you." After this, Chiara takes Gianni to her room, and both of them start kissing. But Chiara stops him before going further, and Gianni becomes sad. The next day, Gianni meets his friend Dr. Dante and asks, "Brother, do those parts of people who have lower body handicap work or not?" Dante tells him, "Yes, they can." At the same time, Dante also scolds him and says that now you are about to turn 50, don't do this to Chiara. Gianni gets shy on this and moves ahead. After this, Gianni invites Chiara for dinner at his house and started moving towards home. On the way, he also dropped off an old girlfriend he met on the morning walk. Here, Chiara confesses to Alicia that she has started liking Gianni the next day. Chiara goes to eat at Gianni's grand house. Now Chiara was moving around the house very easily on the wheelchair, but Gianni, the owner of the house, was driving the wheelchair like a noob person. After this, during dinner, Chiara asks the reason for Gianni's paralysis, on which he makes an excuse of falling from the horse. Chiara laughs at this because she had never heard such a strange way of getting paralyzed before. After this, Chiara explains the reason for her paralysis and becomes dejected. To improve her mood, Gianni gave her a rubber tube and asked her to put this under her arms. After this, the entire house was filled with water and both of their bodies became completely light. Both of them started swimming and started kissing. Yes, whatever you are thinking also happened next. But in the end, when both of them were sleeping, Chiara told him that I felt everything through my mind, but I didn't even realize it in my lower body. Gianni also copies this and says, "Yes, the same happened with me too. I also felt it only in my heart and mind." After this, when Chiara fell asleep, Gianni clicked a photo of her with him and shared it with his friends. In the night, we see that his friend Fabio's wife is walking in Gianni's house in a nightdress. By the way, if you like the video, you can also press the like button below. There is no charge for this. Yes, Fabio's wife was in Gianni's house. Meanwhile, a glass broke in her hand and she started laughing and said, "These days, things are breaking in my hand as if I am a handicapped person." She joked, but Gianni did not like making fun of the handicapped person, so he said to Fabio's wife to immediately change her clothes and go home. After this, many days passed, but Gianni did not talk to Chiara even once. But the interesting thing was that now Gianni's nature was changing. One day, he told her assistant Luciana to call Giulia. "We have to start working on shoes for Paralympic athletes, and Giulia will do the marketing for it." The next day on the morning walk, Gianni called Chiara and asked her to meet. He also said, "I want to tell you some very big truth." Chiara invited him to her house. When Gianni reached home, Chiara asked him to wait as her violin practice was still going on. While waiting, Gianni looked at her old pics, in which Chiara was absolutely fine. Gianni was feeling a ton of guilt about his lie, so he stood behind Chiara from the wheelchair. But as soon as Chiara turned back, Gianni sat back down. After this, Chiara came closer to him, and after kissing Gianni, she asked, "What did you want to tell the truth?" But Gianni did not dare to tell her the truth, so he changed the topic. Here, Chiara became emotional during the conversation and said, "My ex-boyfriend left me as soon as my legs got damaged. I hate such people who fake love." Hearing this, Gianni's heart sank even more, and he cancelled his plan to tell his truth for once. Here, Chiara said to Gianni to introduce her to his friends. Gianni could not ignore her words, so he asked Luciana and Dante to go with them for dinner. On the way, Dante told him, "Chiara loves you, but I think this time you are also in true love. Whatever happens today, you have to tell her the truth, and if you won't do this, we will expose you." Now, during dinner, Dante suggests speaking through gestures, but Gianni was still not able to muster the courage. In such a situation, Dante himself started preparing to speak. Seeing this, Gianni deliberately spilled the drink on his pants and asked Dante to take him to the washroom. Here, Gianni convinces Dante to remain silent, and he once again keeps the truth hidden. The next day, Gianni's brother Razeri went to Alicia's house with flowers and told her the whole truth about Gianni. Now, turning red with anger, Alicia went straight to Gianni and slapped him and said, "You have 2 days to tell Chiara the truth, otherwise I will tell, and it won't be good if I told." Now Gianni is in big trouble, so he goes to meet his father, who is an even bigger playboy than him. After a long conversation, Gianni's father tells him, "I could never be a good husband if you follow my advice. Don't make the same mistake and tell everything to Chiara." But Gianni was still tensed because he was afraid of losing Chiara. That means Gianni was now in love with Chiara. Meanwhile, a girl announces a holy religious place in France and says that many disabled people have been cured at this place. If you want, you can go here with our group. Hearing this, both father and son come up with an idea. Both of them make a plan that Gianni will take Chiara to this place, and after taking a bath in the holy pond, he will tell her that "I have recovered. This is a miracle." On the other hand, Alicia was explaining to her sister that Gianni isn't a good person. You should stay away from him. Meanwhile, Chiara got a call from Gianni, and he asked Chiara to go on a tour of that holy place. Now Alicia asks, "Where are they talking about going?" On this, Chiara says, "He is talking about going to a religious place. Maybe he will need a miracle." Chiara further says, "I knew from the first day that Gianni is not disabled. I understood it just by seeing the way he used to drive his wheelchair. But I have seen the truth in his eyes. He is afraid to tell me the truth. He thinks he will lose me after telling the truth. But at the same time, I also felt good when someone gave me so much love and care despite being handicapped." The next day, both of them reach that religious place, and the priest of the church present there calls Gianni to meet him alone. Priest told Gianni, "I know you are not handicapped, but please do not perform miracles by standing in front of real handicapped people. Doing so will spread superstition among people and give them false hope." Gianni agreed to obey the priest and came out on a wheelchair. Now, when everyone was preparing to board the bus and leave, Chiara was roaming on the road with her wheelchair. But meanwhile, a truck was coming towards her, and Chiara was unaware of it. Now, as soon as Gianni saw the truck, he could not stop himself and ran to save Chiara. Seeing Gianni standing on his feet, Chiara expressed false surprise and said, "This is a miracle." After this, Chiara boarded the bus crying, and both of them reached back to their city. But after coming here, tons of trouble started falling in Gianni's life. Fabio fights with him as soon as he arrives in the city, because he found out about the illicit relationship between his wife and Gianni. After this, assistant Luciana handed him the resignation letter. Now, troubled by life, Gianni goes to his mother's grave, where for the first time in his life, Gianni expresses his love for his mother. By doing this, Gianni's mind became a little lighter. After this, Gianni once again hired Giulia and asked her to start working on making shoes for Paralympic athletes. Now Chiara was also not picking up Gianni's calls, so he planned to go straight to her house. But Chiara was not in the house. Here, her grandmother told that, "My granddaughter is not innocent. She knows very well the liars and deceitful people like you." After this, Gianni narrated his sad story and said that, "I really love Chiara, and I have done all this drama for that very reason." Grandma was a little impressed by these things and said that Chiara had left for another city for one of her shows. Grandma told the time of the bus and Gianni went straight to stop the bus. After this, Gianni went to the bus and started apologizing to Chiara. But Chiara tells him, "Thank you for whatever you have done for me till now. But now I don't need anyone's sympathy. Please leave me alone." After this, Chiara turned her face and started asking the bus to move. Gianni also returned from here. The next day, Gianni was running very fast on his morning walk. He was angry at himself and regretful for his actions. Due to running at high speed for a long time, suddenly Gianni started short of breath and started falling on the ground. But in the meantime, he saw Chiara standing right in front of him. Chiara made the same excuse as Gianni and said, "I had come for some work, and when I came to the park, I met you." Hearing this, Gianni's happiness knows no bounds. After this, she gave Gianni a lift on her wheelchair, and both were together once again. In the next scene, we see that their entire family is together celebrating Gianni's 50th birthday. At the same time, at the end of the movie, we also come to know that Gianni's brother Raziri has made Alicia fall in his love. This is the same gentleman who was bald and Gianni had made fun of him. He turned out to be a bigger fraudster than Gianni. Well, the main focus in the movie is that true love can happen to anyone at any age. If love is true, then nothing else matters to you. What are your thoughts? Please tell us by writing in the comments below. If you want to know more, then let us tell you that the name of this movie was I Run to You, which was released in 2022. To see more such amazing stories, do subscribe the channel. Thank you.